Hello my dear friends. In this video I will tell you two terrifying and realistic stories. The first from the land of Iraq, and the second story about building the house. I thank you for listening and following up. So here is the first story. Many people have very special and horrific experiences with the jinn. Many prefer to be silent about it, because from their point of view, it represents an intrusion into this mysterious world, and others believe that it is generally not pleasant to talk about these topics. As they say, it opens the gates of hell wide open. The beginning of the story. The events of our story took place in Iraq, and the narrator and the author of the story tells that when she was 9 years old, she was living with her family in their old house, and one day the girl went to sleep, but after she went to bed, she felt someone patting her on the shoulder, and she felt someone's breath behind her, as if someone was sleeping next to her in the bed. The child turned to find behind her an old woman, with curly hair and white, sleeping next to her in the bed. The narrator says that she was a child who did not understand the meaning of the worlds of the jinn or the paranormal, in order to be terrified in the same way as if she was mature. But what terrified her was that this lady was not from the family. So the narrator says, I kept closing and opening my eyes, trying to comprehend who this lady was, until she fell into a deep sleep. Something strange in the house. The next morning, I didn't talk to anyone about it, but my 12-year-old sister noticed my wandering for a while and asked me, have you seen the old lady, too? I was surprised that she knew her. But she continued, of course, that you saw her. I also saw her standing next to my bed and smiling at me. In the following days, the old lady pursued us, and things got worse, and our parents knew. So they decided to move to a new house. So after we moved to the new house a very short period, and one day, I saw my sister looking at the corner of the room with great horror, and her pupils were very dilated. And when I went to her to talk to her, she fell unconscious. We took her to the hospital, and I tried to talk to her about what she saw, but she refused to say anything. And we returned to our house once again. I went up to my room to change my clothes, go to sleep, and put the bottle of perfume on my mirror. I came back again and did not find the bottle. To take a sip of water, and when I passed in front of the mirror, I found the bottle of perfume in its place. I looked at her caressingly. Well, you are playing with me. And the disaster was that the bottle moved from its place after the end of my sentence. I jumped from my place quickly like a madman, and I thought that I was going through a state of terrible hallucinations. And I went out to the living room to find my family members all sitting in front of the TV, in a terrifying scene. All of them, they look at the TV with eyes wide open and show no emotion, while the TV channels switch automatically in a frenzy. I jumped in front of her in a barrier between them and the TV and shouted at them, saying, "What's wrong with you?" They looked at me in great astonishment. So I told them what had happened, but they did not believe me and insisted that I was going through an urgent psychological crisis that required rest. I woke up the next day, and the perfume from inside the bottle was sprayed on my face. Face to face, I closed my eyes quickly and then opened them to hear the sound of the perfume bottle falling crashing to the ground. It smelled strongly of perfume, and I heard a voice coming from behind me saying, "I am sorry." Of course, I fell unconscious, and I woke up to find all my family around me. So I broke down crying and asked my parents to move to a new home. Last escape. Indeed, my parents did what I asked them to do, and we moved to another house in a new neighborhood. But the new buyer of the house kept calling my father and telling him that he and his family were hearing strange noises at night from inside the house, and that there was a very strong smell of perfume emanating from one of the rooms in particular, and getting worse. The smell at night. A true story from the land of Iraq. Story 2. Do you know who are the Omars? Do you know that if you leave your house or your favorite place deserted for a while, without moving, visiting, cleaning, and so on. People come to live in it other than you and your family. Some people may not believe this, but there are other worlds that live with us and creatures that were created by the Almighty God, including the jinn, and they are clans between them, the good and the bad, like humans. But if one of us disturbs their habitation, then he has no one to blame but himself. The beginning. The narrator tells our story that she lives with her husband in the city after they moved there due to his working conditions. With them 2 young children, a young woman who does not work. The 2 of them are from a village, and they have a house surrounded by a small wall, surrounded by agricultural land and a small road with several small houses. After their marriage, the family moved to the city, and they left the house for 10 years without visits or even looking at it. The husband does not return home except in the middle of the night, and she cannot travel to the countryside alone. The house was left closed for 10 years straight, and one day the husband returned from work and informed his small family that they were about to return to the village again. The wife was amazed at this decision, but the husband justified that he had been transferred to the branch of the company in which he works, near their village. Of course, the small family surrendered to this decision, and they packed their belongings and moved home. Old, suspicious events. Several quiet days passed, during which the wife gathered her strength and sat cleaning her old house. But it had become old and full of dust, and while the wife was arranging her house, her neighbor came to say hello to her. She came to the house, but did not answer her. "How is that, and no one comes here?" The narrator asked if her neighbor had imagined the matter, except that she assured her that she had followed her to the house, and she knocked on the door repeatedly, but she only received her voice, rebuking her and asking her to go away. Every day, the voices of the children are heard from within, and their voices are all as if they were living in the house. The wife was amazed at the dialogue, and in the evening, while sitting in her room, the wife saw a black shadow passing through the door opening. The wife was terrified and got up to see if it was one of the children, except that she saw a shadow of a tall man, tall, black-haired, looking at her quickly, then entered the kitchen. The wife followed him, but there was no one. The next morning, the 2 children told their mother that there was a small child hiding under the beds at night, and asking them to play together and not appear except at night. The matter soon got worse. One day, the husband informed his wife that he would have to stay overnight with his work, and that she would have to take care of the children as soon as he came back. And if he entered and started to change his clothes, the wife asked him to prepare dinner for him, but he refused, citing extreme exhaustion at work. After a few minutes, the electricity was cut off. The wife had to turn on her mobile phone, and I wish she hadn't opened it. And I found the same tower as she saw him before, as he stared at her with red eyes in the dark. The wife screamed and got up to wake her husband, but he did not move an inch. The wife went out of her room, and the lights came back on, to find the door of the house opening and her husband entering to say hello. The young lady went to one of the sheikhs and told him what happened, so he advised her to vacate the house immediately, telling her that the people who lived in the house were its builders, and they are called by this name because they are the ones who built it after its companions deserted it, and it is not permissible for them to return to it except after obtaining the permission of the builder and purifying it. And no one should leave a place of his own, deserted without connection or connection for more than 40 days, because the builders refused to they leave him. If you liked the video, do not forget to like and subscribe.